Caesarion was the nickname given to the son of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. His real name is Ptolemy Philopator Caesar, and he's also referred to as Ptolemy the 15th Caesar. Look, when you're the son of the most powerful man in Rome and the inheritor of Ptolemaic Egypt, you're gonna have a lot of names. Caesarion was born on June 23, 47 BC, after his two parents took a 2-month love cruise down the Nile River. By the time Caesarion, which translates to Little Caesar, was born, his father was just finishing up his civil wars and returning to Rome after 2 years of near constant battling. But just as Julius Caesar was settling back into Rome, he would need to confront a new battle: fatherhood. In 46 BC, Cleopatra left with her infant son, who apparently resembled Caesar, to go to Rome. Upon finding out that this Ptolemaic boy was his son, Caesar was probably just as shocked as any surprised father would be today. He allowed Cleopatra and Caesarion to stay with him at his own villa in Rome. This might show a soft family side to Caesar, but that didn't uncomplicate the predicament that Caesarion's birth had caused. The majority of Roman citizens disliked the Egyptian Cleopatra due to her not being Roman enough. This, combined with the fact that Caesar already had a male heir, named Octavian, who was his nephew and very Roman, led to Caesar never officially naming Caesarion as his son. That didn't matter so much because Cleopatra made sure that everybody knew who Caesarion's father was. After all, this baby was not only her ticket to survival, but the survival of Ptolemaic Egypt. The family lived together at Caesar's villa from 46 to 44 BC, receiving plenty of jealous and slightly nervous looks from Caesar's adopted son Octavian. One fateful March day in 44 BC would change this little family's life forever. Caesar recently declared himself as the dictator for life, and fear of his power grew among the Roman Senate. This would ultimately lead to the assassination of Julius Caesar, a giant problem for Cleopatra and her 2.5-year-old son. Julius Caesar was the only protection that Cleopatra had in Rome, giving her no other choice but to leave. The mother and child returned to their Egyptian homeland, and soon after, on September 2nd of 44 BC, Caesarion was named as the Pharaoh of Egypt at the age of 3. He shared this position with his mother, who still held all of the real power. There was no further mention of Little Caesar until 36 BC, but a storm was gathering around Egypt in the form of another civil war, which was centered around Mark Antony, one of Caesar's generals, and Caesarion's adopted older brother and second cousin by blood, Octavian. After battling the supporters of the murderers of Caesar, the Roman Empire was split, with Octavian receiving the northwest, Mark Antony receiving the east, and a third man named Lepidus receiving Africa. Antony wasted no time in his new realm, almost immediately going to Alexandria, Egypt, and arriving there in 41 BC to confront Cleopatra. He went there with the express purpose to learn the truth and see if Cleopatra had plotted against him in the civil war. But he left with much more. Just like she had done with Julius Caesar, Cleopatra seduced Mark Antony, who stayed with her during the winter from 41 to 40 BC. And just like Caesar, Antony left Cleopatra pregnant, with not 1, but 2 children. While Antony returned to fighting and arguing with Octavian, Cleopatra returned to raising the now 7-year-old Caesarion and his newly born siblings. Mark Antony wouldn't return to Egypt until 36 BC, after a failed invasion of Parthia. Now, Antony needed Cleopatra's money, so he returned to Alexandria, most likely meeting his twin children for the very first time. Cleopatra and Mark Antony remained close, and produced one more child together. Antony enjoyed Alexandria so much that he moved his headquarters there by 35 BC. Then in 34 BC, Cleopatra, who was being backed by Antony now, was declared to be the Queen of Kings, and the 13-year-old Caesarion as the King of Kings. Caesarion was also granted large tracts of land at the donations of Alexandria, which would divide the Ptolemaic and Octavian-controlled lands between Caesarion and his 3 half-siblings, with Caesarion receiving Egypt. The oldest of Antony's children, Alexander Helios, was granted Armenia, Media, and Parthia. His twin sister, whose name was Cleopatra, received Cyrenaica and Libya, and the youngest of the Antonys received Syria, Phoenicia, and Cilicia. The donations of Alexandria also ended with Caesarion finally being recognized as the legitimate son of Julius Caesar. This was an obvious threat to Octavian, who claimed all of his power from his adopted father Julius Caesar. If Caesar had a real son, then where did that leave Octavian exactly? Caesarion's legitimization would be one of the leading factors to a war that would start in 32 BC that would pit Mark Antony and Cleopatra against Octavian and the power of Rome. The deciding battle of this war would occur outside of the city of Actium on September 2nd, 31 BC. This naval battle would seal the fate of Antony, Cleopatra, Ptolemaic Egypt, and the 17-year-old Caesarion. And only a year later, in 30 BC, Octavian invaded Egypt. Not wanting to face the punishment of his rival, Antony committed suicide on August 1st of 30 BC. With his father figure dead, and his second cousin coming for his head, the little Caesar was evacuated to the south of Egypt and into Nubia, at the insistence of Cleopatra. The plan was to evacuate Caesarion to Arabia, India, or somewhere far, far away from Egypt. Cleopatra would have joined him, but unfortunately, on August 12th, 11 days after Antony committed suicide, Cleopatra would join him, rumored to be at the bite of a poisonous snake. This would lead the 17-year-old Caesarion to be the sole pharaoh of Egypt, the last Ptolemy to be named as such. Octavian might have won his civil war, but he was denied his main prize, the head of Caesar's true son. Instead of hunting down the young pharaoh, Octavian decided to take a more diplomatic route to this issue. So he sent envoys and letters southwards, where Caesarion was believed to be. These letters stipulated that if the young pharaoh would return, then he could continue to rule Egypt as a Roman subject. Caesarion received the letters and was convinced by his tutor to return to Alexandria to face his cousin. Caesarion returned to what was promised to be his city of Alexandria, and was almost immediately arrested by Octavian. The problem with Caesarion's existence is that he was a god, not only by Egyptian standards, but also Roman ones. His father, Julius Caesar, was deified as a god in 42 BC. Being the living embodiment of an Egyptian god and the son of a man so powerful that he became a god would be a threat to anyone in power, and especially Octavian. In 30 BC, the 17-year-old Caesarion was executed on the orders of his adopted brother, most likely by strangulation, ending the 270 years that the Ptolemies ruled Egypt, and ending the bloodline of Julius Caesar. Ironically, the first Roman or half-Roman Ptolemy to rule Egypt would be the very last. Caesarion, from birth, was destined to inherit the world. He could have been a great unifier of the three biggest cultures in the Mediterranean: Egyptian, Roman, and Greek, that his Ptolemaic family was descended from. But instead of this, he was simply a roadblock for the growing influence of his older, adopted brother Octavian, who would soon crown himself as the first emperor of Rome and change his name to Augustus.